one Sabbath, one of the elders at the church I pastor at came in and said, hey, I invited this person from work. I'm like, oh, wow, how did that happen? And we said, well, I was impressed at work. I was running a little late, going to work, and I was impressed to go back into the house and turn around and go grab that extra Bible I had on my in my house, my nightstand or wherever it was. So he ran back in the house, grabbed the Bible, put it in his bag, and goes to work. He doesn't think anything of it. At the end of the workday, towards the end of the workday, a young man, a young adult, comes into his office and he says, hey, you're religious, aren't you? He says, well, yeah. He says, do you think you could help me get a Bible? And he says, well, I just happen to have one. And he pulls the Bible out and he gives it to him, and it starts a spiritual conversation. And so he says, well, you should come to church this Sabbath. And he invites him to church, to his church here in Anchorage. And so next Sabbath, he tells me, hey, he's coming to church today, and I think he's going to bring his girlfriend with him. Well, they never showed up. Well, the next day was deacon and deaconess meeting. And so there we're at deacon and deaconess meeting. And he wasn't a deacon, he was an elder, but he was there to help kind of mentor some of the deacons along. And at the end of the meeting, I went out into the lobby that's right here behind me, and I see this couple walking up to the church dressed to the nines, Sunday morning. I'm like, what are they doing? They look like they're coming to church. So I opened up the door and greet them, and I said, hey, Angelo invited us. And there they were coming to church that Sunday morning and not realizing that we go to church on Sabbath. Well, anyway, they got shown around, greeted the deacons and deaconesses, and showed around the church, and just had a real positive experience, and invited them to come back to church the next Saturday. So the next Saturday, they drove into the parking lot, and they were the girlfriend kind of got cold feet a little bit, and she said, oh, we can turn around and leave, no one's seen us yet. And right then a greeter came out the door and said, hey, you're at the right place, come on in. And they come to the church. And so they come into the church, and that Sabbath, the sermon that Sabbath was called Lessons from the Life of Simon. And it was on the story of Simon the sorcerer and the bitterness that he had in his heart, and him accepting Jesus, being baptized for the wrong reasons, and it really dug into bitterness and the need for forgiveness of others. And it really spoke to their heart in this situation, these two young adults, early 20s. And they went over to that elder and his wife's house afterwards, and they spent the whole day with them. That night, we were beginning a one-week evangelistic series, 7-part series called The Case for the Sabbath. And so our elder was helping with the sound and the recording and live streaming. And he went to the church for that and invited them, but they didn't come. They were visiting with the elder's wife and whatnot. And don't think a thing of it, but they were planning on coming back the next Sabbath. Well, that Wednesday, the young man went up to our elder and he said, hey, I think we're going to watch the series on the Sabbath. And we're going to, because we're live streaming it too. And our elder said, hey, why don't you go through and start at the beginning and don't just jump into the middle, because it builds on itself. And so by Friday, which was the second to last presentation, they had caught all the way up in the series, and they come to church the next, they're getting ready to come to church the next Sabbath. And on Friday, the girlfriend said to her boyfriend, says, hurry, we got to get ready for Sabbath. We're getting close to Sunday. Less than 2 weeks after they showed up to an Adventist church on Sunday. And they came, and they've been growing and changing, and they are just such an awesome young couple, just on fire for the Lord, and they're living for Him. I had the privilege of baptizing them. They got married. They're just on fire for Jesus, and it's just been so fun to watch and see what God is doing in these young people's lives, and who have a heart not just for the people of God, but for a heart for the truth of His Word. And God is working all over.